Okay, we are recording. Thank you guys for joining, and for those of you that can't be on right now, I hope that you're enjoying the replay. So Kristen Clemens and I have been friends for a number of years, and a few months ago, I posted something on Facebook about a documentary, a vegan documentary that I watched, and Kristen messaged me, and we started talking about it behind the scenes about like how interesting it was and how much we sort of wanted to do it. And I tried doing it. Chris and I tried, and I was pretty much unsuccessful. I did it for maybe 2 weeks or something. He did it longer, which was sort of amazing. But Kristen took off with it, and so we might have started at the same point, but she just ran with it. And so I've been watching her journey over the last few months, and I feel like she's doing a really good job of making it accessible for everyone and not making it too, too hippie and too hard for the normal average person. So that's why I brought her to be our guest expert this month for VIP, just for another perspective and just something to think about. And before I let her talk, I just wanted to say that I'm not really thinking that anybody's going to go all vegan just from listening to this, but maybe just employ some of these habits and start thinking about eating more plants in our diet, which I think is awesome and optimal. Like, you don't have to go all the way in like Kristen has to benefit from this lifestyle. So, okay, Kristen, that's my brief intro. Will you tell us a little bit about yourself again, and then we can get started?
So, hi, whoever's watching later. I'm Kristen. I am a personal trainer in the Champaign-Urbana area, and I've got a little family. I've got a 13-month-old and some teenagers, and so we've got kind of the full gamut at my house. I've been in the health and fitness industry for, since maybe 2012-ish. Just kind of on and off. I taught some group fitness classes kind of early in my college years, and I worked at a supplement store. So I spent probably a year reading labels for 8 hours a day at a store. And so just lots of different people kind of coming through, sharing what they know. And I tried kind of the no meat, no dairy lifestyle, maybe 10 years ago when I was in early college, and I loved it, but I think I probably wasn't doing it well because I didn't do it to be, healthy, or I did, but I wasn't like, I'm going to be vegan. Even now I don't feel that way, but I kind of, I started slowly taking things out of my diet, and I realized I lost about, 35, 40 pounds.
Wow.
And I never felt overweight or like I needed to lose weight. That was just kind of a natural benefit of getting rid of some of those things in my diet. And so when I started shifting my fitness routine to more lifting, I felt like I needed that extra calories and meat and dairy back in my diet. And it was good for a while, but I'm this is the wrong pun, but kind of went cold turkey back to no meat and
cold
no
eggplant.
Yeah. So, I'll spare you my whole life story, but
okay,
I've been really upset since maybe July.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
We both watched that. I mean, I spent like a weekend of like, oh my God, everything's poison. I can't eat anything. I was so hungry. And eventually I kind of found some homeostasis there a little bit. Yeah. And so now I've got kind of, built up my recipes and have more food to actually eat.
We definitely both, we talked about it. We both, maybe you gave me this advice. It was like, you don't need to jump all in like you did the second time. Like, you can ease your way into it. And I don't think I did that enough. I think I tried to go too fast. And so for those of you who are kind of considering this and leaning into this, it's okay to go slow. So for example, a lot of us love our eggs. I mean, eggs, especially for this program, eggs are a really great source of lots of things. So if you don't want to give up your eggs, you make the rules. You don't have to give up your eggs. You can start by giving up red meat or deli meat or things like that. But I will say the dairy. So I used to drink milk like all the time. It was like my favorite thing. And then 5 years ago when I started in this lifestyle, I gave up milk. Maybe I'll have it a few times a month, but I'm convinced that I dropped 15 pounds just from giving up milk. And so it is just, it's funny how our bodies sort of hold on to some of that and we don't even realize it. So, okay, Kristen, why don't you tell us then what changes you've made to your, like, how have you been able to implement this into your life the second time through?
Well, I feel a little more well-educated this time, because before it was just about me and how I felt. My now husband, but not at the time, he was training for a marathon, and that's what he started kind of playing with his diet. So he was like,
at the same time?
yes. So this is kind of where I got it the first time. But he doesn't eat that way now, but I do a lot of the cooking, so he'll kind of eat whatever. He's
right.
Pretty happy with whatever I show up with.
Right.
But I started seeing him really accelerate in kind of the athletic aspect. And so I'm like, ooh, I could probably do better if I started adding in more superfoods. That was kind of, I was like eating kale before kale was a thing. And, the weird, super healthy foods that are very common now, pomegranates and all your berries in your smoothies, and that's stuff that's really hip now. I'm getting off track of our question. So
how have you started implementing this second time?
So I feel like I learned a little more about the big picture rather than just how it affects me. Well, that's important. And like, I think I wrote it in one of my blogs, everybody in this group, you all care about your personal health, and you should, but it also looking at everything that goes into what makes animal products and how they end up at your door. I mean, really thinking about where your food comes from. That's not something that even the first time around, I probably didn't consider that as heavily as I do now. So that's what really drives a lot of not so much my willpower, but like probably my conviction about it. I know that I feel almost like a spiritual responsibility to others to eat this way. Not so much there's just the added benefit of how I feel and my weight management and just those sort of things.
But for you, it's like more about the environmental effects. And so could you just highlight some of the reasons why eating meat is hard on the environment?
Well, and I can throw a bunch of numbers at you. I won't, but essentially everything that goes into making, a cheeseburger, for example, there's meat and dairy in that. So you've got, I think it's 56% of our water, like all of our water in America goes to just feed crops, not even just watering the cows that we're eventually going to eat, but the corn that they're going to consume to become a hamburger. And really, those cows aren't even supposed to really eat corn. They're supposed to eat grass because that's how, it's there's a lot of things that kind of go into eating the food that we can just go pick up or go through a drive-through, or sort of, it's just a matter of money equals food for us. But really there's so many other factors in the farming and the industry component that go into it. And really, and I think I addressed this a little in my post, a vegan lifestyle by definition is a little bit more emphasis on animal cruelty and that kind of thing. So that really even includes honey, which I don't know a ton about why that would be, other than it's an animal product and it comes from an animal, but I don't know if it's like the manipulation of the hive or how they farm it.
Interesting.
So I don't know about that yet, so I still eat honey because I have friends that make it, so I'm fine with that and I like it. But
right. And you can make those kinds of choices.
And so in that way, I'm not a vegan. I try not to even use that word. I feel like when people bring it up at parties or wherever I'm out, it's like getting outed. Like,
oh, yes.
Like,
yeah.
oh, you're vegan, right?
Well, and I listened to a podcast about a doctor who supports this lifestyle, but the host asked him about, being a vegan, and he said, I don't really go by labels. Like I'm just me, and I like to eat a predominantly plant-based diet, and so he talked about like a few times a year, he has holiday, what's the word, traditions where they eat, like they eat a duck on New Year's and they do, different things like that throughout the year. And he's like, I totally partake in that. But for the most part, I try to eat mostly plants. And I love the idea of taking the label out because the labels are stigmatizing and we just don't really need them.
There's a lot of assumptions and sort of, there's just a lot that goes into that vegan word that people get really weirded out about. So really, I do just kind of stick with a whole foods plant-based diet. So I cook a lot because of it. I'm not really doing freezer section stuff very often, besides maybe berries or things that you can't get when they're off season. And even that, trying to shop on season or buy things that are growing then, it's harder to do. There is more work in being conscious about your,
especially in the winter, don't you feel? Like the summer, it's like.
Yeah, and during the summer, it's easy because I have a pretty big garden plot, so I can just walk outside and get fresh tomatoes and basil and throw together a pizza if I want to.
Nice.
So that's, not everybody does that.
Let's talk about a couple of the challenges with it, and I'll just start by my own experience, and maybe you can go through how you dealt with these. So one of my challenges was I had a hard time staying full because you have to eat more carbs because your protein sources, yes, they're still there in the plants, but it's a much lower amount than maybe you're used to. So is that just something that your body adjusts to, or how did you deal with that? How did you do that?
I did notice that. I was hungry a lot until I got my regular meals kind of worked out because I felt like I was just snacking all the time.
Yeah.
Carrot sticks or whatever, stuff that's just around. And I work from home too. So you're thinking about being hungry a lot more than if you're like out running errands. I find fat was a big component. If I had enough fat in my diet, like healthy fat, then you have that sensation of feeling full instead of just like eating salad all day, which is, nobody wants to do that. I don't care who says they like salad all the time. That's a lie.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of nuts in my diet. I go through a lot of avocados. Almond butter is a big one. I don't buy it a lot because it's expensive. So I do kind of use peanut butter, which isn't really the greatest, but can be expensive to kind of float a vegan diet.
Yeah.
But that was my big thing. I've noticed that my muscle mass has gone up, which I've been able to track, which is fun.
That's awesome.
So I was freaked out that was going to totally go down the tubes as soon as I made that switch, but it took me about a month to kind of regulate. And I know you mentioned that a high fiber diet can kind of maybe make your tummy a little unhappy.
Yeah.
That eventually went away.
Okay.
Because my son, who's now 13 months old, he eats pretty much what I eat for the most part. And he was a very gassy little baby for a little while, just because he was nursing still, or he is still nursing now, but he was getting what I have. So he had those same tummy issues. But
yeah, I had forgotten that I had that. Yeah, my stomach never hurts. And when I did the vegan for like 10 minutes, it did, I felt discomfort. But I honestly, which you guys might be surprised at this, I don't really enjoy a lot of vegetables. I mean, I have to sort of work to get my vegetables, and it's a choice. It's a daily thing that I try to do. And so being vegan means that you really are eating more plants. You have to really kind of learn how to get those in an enjoyable way. And so I think I was just eating a lot more veggies than I'm used to. And like you said, I think it would go away if I worked through it.
Yeah. Once I hit about the 4-week mark, I was starting to like worry. I'm like, my tummy's a little unsettled. I don't know how long I want to put up with this, but it did. Your body does adjust to it.
Okay. That's good to know. What about, do you miss cooking with butter or cheese, or are those things harder, or has that been pretty easy?
I have never really been a big butter person, like cooking wise. So I've always gone with olive oil in general. I made a recipe the other day that I think I posted about. It was an acorn squash soup recipe, and it had like 2 tablespoons of butter that you caramelize onions in. And there's nothing that smells better in the whole world than caramelizing onions and garlic in good butter.
Yeah.
So I did it with olive oil, and then it calls for buttermilk. So I made buttermilk out of almond milk, which is surprisingly easy. I just thought, I'll just give it a try. If this is gross, then no one will know. But it turned out wonderful. You just take, your cup of whatever milk you're going to use and add like a tablespoon of lemon juice, or I used apple cider vinegar, and it curdles just like buttermilk does. And so there's almost always a pretty solid substitute.
That's awesome.
Make. And so that a lot of experimenting is really what I've had to do. Not so much, pizza is the only kind of sticking point, like, because cheese is just structurally better than vegan cheese, which is usually made out of like cashews. And it's still good. It kind of scratches that itch.
Okay.
But we'll see.
Okay. And what about, so can you answer the question that everybody asks, which is, how do you get enough protein, especially for people in this program who are trying typically to get about 1 gram per pound of body weight and protein? What do you think about that?
Recently I haven't been tracking my macros as well. I used to use the app Lose It, or I'm sure all of you have like Fitbits or something that you can track things with. Because I'm nursing, I feel like I eat a lot of weird stuff during the day. So I'm not super strict on it right now. I'll be more data centered in the next few months when I'm done. But there's there's protein in things that you don't expect it to be, like rice and peas. And it's not so, you don't have to sit down and eat a giant bowl of peas with X amount of grams of protein. But throughout your day, I probably get, close to 70 grams out of just my regular diet.
Okay.
And I do use, on the days that I work out, I have a vegan protein powder that I supplement with, just to make sure that I have the recovery protein that I need.
Uh-huh.
But really, it's not been, I know people get really freaked out about carbs, but I haven't gained any weight. I've actually lost a couple of fat percentages.
Kristen, do you know about how many grams of carbs you're getting? Are you around like 200, do you think?
Maybe a little higher.
Okay. So for the group, you guys, that's about what we would get on a high carb day, just for point of reference. So, I have considered that So with my program, I think you know a little bit about it, Kristen, where we alternate high carb and low carb. If you guys are interested in trying this, it might be a good thing to try on your high carb days and keep doing what you're doing on your low carb days, just as a way to experiment, because then you don't have to worry about the carbs. You're already getting them anyway, and you just need to find some other ways to get that protein in. But if you guys already have a protein shake, it doesn't, you don't have to switch for vegan. Just finish what you've got, and then if you want to get a vegan, you can. But I think that might be a good way to try it.
Yeah, and in kind of preparation for this, I did try a bunch of different vegan proteins. The one that I like the best is Sun Warrior, which you can probably get most places, and that was the best. Grams per serving and taste. And
okay. I have a good one too from 5 Star. That's good. It's vanilla and it's pretty yummy.
I have that on top of my fridge right now.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And I like it. It's a little on the gritty side.
Yeah. I like to cook with it, like bake with it, like make cookies or, energy balls or something.
So yeah, there's a couple good ones. Vega is very well rated, but I do not like how it tastes all that well.
Okay. Is that the brand of it, Vega?
Yeah, that's
okay.
Like a sport protein, so it's, I don't know how many grams. You don't need, 1 million grams of protein per scoop anyway, because your body can only do so much with it in any sitting, or any, one serving.
Right. And that's another thing that Kristen and I both learned in our research and in watching these documentaries, because I feel like we both read up on this quite a bit, is that, we talk about 1 gram per serving of 1 gram per pound of body weight for your protein. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of protein. When we did the research, it basically says you don't really need that much. Now, there's a bunch of discussion about those things, and you can search it and you'll find support for both camps. So, I still try to get about a gram per pound. But I also recognize that might not be necessary, and I just don't really know. So I sort of play with that. So you have to kind of, play with things and test them and try them out on your own, which I love that you did that, Kristen, because I think I was a little scared too. I was scared to let those things go and eat that many carbs, and so I'm glad you did it for me.
Lately I've been following and reading up on some other vegan athletes and people that are in CrossFit, and there are just lots of different lifestyles out there. And there's one girl in particular that I just stumbled onto a couple of days ago, and her diet is like heavily based in starches, and she's like ripped. I was so surprised because she doesn't have any meat. She's vegan, but she has like lots of potatoes, lots of bananas, just lots of greens and good veggies too, and kind of nutrient dense stuff, which is what I shoot for most of the time. What has the maximum amount of good nutrients per, whatever you're eating. But I'm kind of curious and nervous about what if I shift to more of a starchy diet? What is that going to do to me? And
yeah, once you get something that's working for you, it is hard to stop. And so that's why it just occurred to me in this conversation. I like the idea of the ladies in this group trying it on the high carb days, because I feel like we wouldn't really be changing all that much and we could still benefit. At least that's how it's working in my brain. So how about, first of all, if you guys listening have any questions, you're welcome to use the chat tool or unmute yourself and raise your hand and post a question if you have them. I don't think there were any questions on the Facebook page. But Kristen, I just kind of assumed that people know the benefits of a vegan lifestyle, but that's silly to assume that. So let's go back. Can you go over those a little bit?
Well, the kind of natural benefits you have are just less saturated fat in your diet from no meat and no dairy. There's less carcinogens. You have less just overall intake of toxins, which really, I was kind of rewatching a little bit of some of the documentaries we've watched just to kind of refresh myself on this. And it feels really doom and gloom.
It does.
Like there's so much scary stuff that's bad for you out there, but I try to think of it as what you're adding to your life rather than what you're taking away. You're adding all these nutrients, you're adding all these good sources of all your macros and everything like that, rather than I don't get to have that anymore. And it's
that's a healthy way to think of it, for sure.
Even if you're looking for a couple of days a week, think about what can I put into my life instead of focus on cutting this out and this out and this out.
Right. If you remove the meat and the dairy, it allows more room for plants in our diet. And there's just no question that plants provide more nutrients than all of that stuff. Those other things are sort of preferences we've developed over the years, but plants are truly the best thing we can eat.
And thinking about just really what you're avoiding by letting go of meat and dairy, in as far as what's in pesticides. Fish is one that slips through the cracks a lot because it's not a big bad red meat, but it's or even poultry that's super high in sodium, and we really lean on that in health and fitness, like, oh, it's the healthy white meat, but really it's because of the volume we're intaking in place of with the high protein diets. You are getting a lot more sodium, a lot more saturated fat and cholesterol, just because you eat 2 or 3 meals a day of it, probably in some form or another. But fish are high in, this is the bummer part. I'm sorry. It's, all the mercury that's in the ocean and the plastics that they just ingest. Something called bioaccumulation exists, which means when you have a little tiny fish that eats all these bad things, then you have a bigger fish that eats that one.
Right.
And so on up the food chain, then you've got a salmon or tuna that have eaten all these tiny little fish, and they're full of stuff that we don't really want to ingest.
Right. So it's like, part of it, ladies, isn't that meat just on its own is horrible. It's the age we live in and how the meat is raised and what it eats and how, the food it eats, it has had pesticides and that kind of thing, and it's like the process of it is sort of broken. And so by avoiding meat and dairy, we sort of we allow ourselves to avoid some of those things. Also, I just want to mention that if you decide to watch some of these documentaries, which like for the health of it, what are the other ones, Kristen?
with What the Health, Forks
What
Over
the hell?
Knives, which we both really liked because it's a little more balanced.
What was it called again?
Forks Over Knives.
Oh yeah, Forks Over Knives.
And then In Defense of Food.
Okay, I haven't watched that one. So, but when you guys watch these, just try to take it with a grain of salt because you, and I'm speaking from experience, I watched it and Chris and I were like, we're vegan. I mean, it's very convincing, but that's the point of it. It's a little tilted view, and you have to just be careful that we have to take the information and absorb it and apply it as it works for us. So just, take it for what it is and know that it is a piece of propaganda, if you will, to support that kind of lifestyle. Do you have anything else you want to add, Kristen, about your experience with this or advice?
Since it's been, I'm not quite 6 months yet, maybe. Personal benefits that I've noticed, like I said, my body fat has gone down, my muscles have increased. I wouldn't say anything about my sleep. I have a tiny child in my life, so that's a gamble no matter what. But I recover faster from workouts now. Like I'm not as sore. Maybe it takes me a day to bounce back from leg day instead of 2.5 or 3. And I don't really get sick that often, which I remembered from kind of my first try at this. Your immune system goes way up because you get all those extra nutrients. So it's kind of nice it's a drag when you see your family getting all sick and you're the only one who's fine, so you've got to pick up the slack. But
that's awesome. That's a really cool benefit I hadn't remembered or thought of about the immune benefits because of all those, like you said, all those nutrients.
I pulled these out of my cabinet because I'm guessing at some point somebody will want to know about supplementation as far as because you're missing certain things. So protein is a macro, but your micronutrients, B12.
Yes.
So I do take that. I take a flaxseed oil rather than fish oil.
Okay.
So benefit your omega-3s. And I have a calcium supplement right now because I'm still nursing. So you don't have that extra. I mean, that's good anyway. You should, if you're a woman, be taking that. And then just a multivitamin.
I should totally get flaxseed oil instead of my fish oil because this is really gross, but you get like burps and it is revolting. And even the one I'm taking is lemon flavored, so it's supposed to not taste bad, but it's when I feel it coming, I'm like, no, go down. That's so horrible. So flaxseed oil, do you still get the burps?
No.
Okay, yeah, I got to switch.
I used
life's too short
for a long time, and that never happened to me. So maybe that's just me. But yeah, flax doesn't do that to you, which is nice. You can get it in a liquid or capsule, but this is just easier to take.
Okay, that is helpful. I'm so gonna do that like today. All right. Well, I'm sure that after I post this recording, we'll have some follow-up questions. So you guys keep tagging Kristen if you have any questions through the rest of the month. And I'd love to see you guys make some of the meals she's posted. Kristen, could you post your cashew chicken Alfredo recipe? That would be amazing if you still have it because it looked so good and I want to try it.
I think that was one of the ones I gave you, the cashew Alfredo.
I don't remember it, but I'll look. If it's not, maybe you could post it. I think that's it. Well, thank you so much for this. I found it really helpful. I hope you guys did too. And I'll post the recording and keep asking those questions if you have them for Kristen. Thank you, Kristen, so much. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye, you too.